Hello friends, I am Dr. Deepak Garg. I am an orthopedic surgeon and this is our second video in NEET PG series, and our topic today is fracture basics and fracture healing. So what is a fracture? Breach in the continuity of a cortex of a bone is called fracture. Pathognomic sign of a fracture, that means if fracture is there, this sign will be there, and it is abnormal mobility more than crepitus. Most consistent symptom of a fracture is a pain. Most consistent sign of a fracture is tenderness. Let's look at the causes of the fracture. It can be traumatic fracture, it can be a non-traumatic fracture. Non-traumatic fracture can be a pathological fracture or a stress fracture. We will discuss about the traumatic fracture in this video. So let's look at a question first. Direct impact on the bone will produce a transverse fracture, oblique fracture, spiral fracture, comminuted fracture. So the answer is transverse fracture. Let's look at the details. So traumatic fracture patterns can be a transverse fracture. Transverse fracture is a fracture line less than 30 degree with the horizontal. It is usually produced by a direct force from opposite direction of the bone. Then we have oblique fracture. Oblique fracture, if the fracture line is more than 30 degree with the horizontal, they are usually produced by the compressive forces. Then we have spiral fracture. Spiral fracture are produced by the twisting forces and they have maximum chances of union. Then we have comminuted fracture. That means the fracture has multiple fragments and they are usually caused by direct trauma or crush injuries. Then we can have segmental fractures. That means there is a one fragment of the bone in the middle, another separate fragment. So let's look at a question. Direct impact on the bone will produce a. So we have already seen it can be a transverse fracture or it can be a comminuted fracture from a direct impact. So the chances of transverse fracture are more. So the answer in this case will be a transverse fracture. Then another question. A child falls from a chair and complains of pain in the mid leg. No visible deformity. He is unable to bear his weight on standing. What is the diagnosis? Oblique fracture, spiral fracture, comminuted fracture or fracture of epiphysis. That means all the options are talking about fracture. That means the child is having a fracture and he complains of pain in the mid leg. There is no visible deformity. If there is no visible deformity, that means the fracture is undisplaced. So out of all the options, we need to see which fracture is the most stable fracture. If we see the oblique fracture, spiral fracture, comminuted fracture, fracture of the epiphysis, the most stable is a spiral fracture. That's why it has a maximum chances of union. So the answer in this case should be a spiral fracture. Next question. Which of the following is an example of avulsion fracture? So answer in this case is a olecranon fracture. Let's look at the details of a avulsion fracture. So what is a avulsion fracture? A small chunk of the bone attached to a tendon or a ligament gets pulled away from the main part of the bone. We can see from the diagram here, the main part of the bone is pulled with the pull of the ligament. This is called avulsion fracture. So the typical examples are olecranon avulsion fracture or patellar avulsion fracture. So we looked in the last question, they were asking about example of avulsion fracture and the answer was olecranon avulsion fracture. Similarly, this is another question. Range of motion is reduced in which fractures? Epiphyseal, metaphyseal, diaphyseal, stress fractures. So range of motion, we talk about the joint. So the fracture in the joint will have reduce in the motion. So in this case, the epiphyseal is a fracture in the joint. So epiphyseal is the answer. So let's look at the details on type of fractures based on the location. It can be epiphyseal, metaphyseal or diaphyseal. If we look at the epiphyseal fracture, they are intra-articular fractures and they have maximum risk of osteoarthritis because they are intra-articular, and also the range of motion will be reduced because of they are intra-articular. Metaphyseal fracture, they have a very high vascularity. So because of high vascularity, they heals very well, and because the bone is soft and they has a maximum chances of going into malunion. And if we talk about the diaphyseal fracture, they have less vascularity, so healing is reduced because of the less vascularity, and they has more risk of non-union because of low vascular supply. So the next question, diagnostic sign of a fracture. We have already discussed about it. So the sign, if this sign is there, patient will definitely have a fracture. Abnormal mobility at the fracture site, pain at the fracture site, tenderness at the fracture site, or swelling. So the answer is abnormal mobility at the fracture site. So the commonest sign of a fracture, commonest sign, that means if the fracture is there, this sign will be there. So the answer is tenderness. Surest sign of the fracture, again the same like diagnostic sign of the fracture, the answer is abnormal mobility or loss of transmission of the movement is a surest sign of the fracture. So now what is crepitus? Crepitus is because of the rubbing of the both fracture ends together, and it gives a sensation of friction between the fractured ends. It should not be elicited because it may cause neurogenic shock, or it may cause comminution at fracture ends due to rubbing of the bone ends. It can also be positive in bursitis or subcutaneous emphysema. So because it can also be positive in other conditions, so it is not very reliable sign of a fracture. So the next question is the most common sign of a fresh fracture. So we have already seen the most common sign, that means if fracture is there, this sign will be there. So crepitus, bony tenderness, deformity, abnormal mobility. The answer is bony tenderness. True about primary fracture healing: intramembranous bone formation, healing without callus formation, anatomical reduction is a must, or all of the above. So the answer is all of the above. Let's look at the details about the fracture healing. The fracture healing can be a primary fracture healing or secondary fracture healing. For primary fracture healing, there should be anatomical reduction, like we can see from the diagram here, the anatomical reduction, there will be primary fracture healing. In secondary fracture healing, anatomical reduction is not a must, so in the another scenario there can be secondary healing. Primary fracture healing is a result of absolute stability, that means there is no micromotion at the fracture site, whereas the secondary fracture healing is a result of relative stability, that means the fracture is not very rigid and there is a micromotion at the fracture site. The same thing, primary fracture healing, rigid fixation is there. Secondary fracture healing, there is a micro motion at the fracture fragments. It can be in nailing or a few platings like bridge plating. And in primary fracture healing, there is a direct healing and there is no callus formation. Whereas in secondary fracture healing, there is a callus is formed at the fracture site and there is a indirect healing. So the primary fracture healing, there is a direct intramembranous bone formation and that occurs through Haversian remodeling. Whereas in secondary fracture healing, first cartilage is formed, then it is re-ossified to form a bone. So there is a endochondral bone healing. So the next question is first clinical stage of union: hematoma formation, granulation tissue formation, callus formation, or consolidation. So these are all the stages of fracture healing. The first clinical stage is, answer is consolidation. Let's look at the stages of fracture healing in detail. So once a patient is having any incident or road traffic accident and he encounters a fracture in any of the bone, so the first thing that will happen at the fracture site is a bleeding. So there is a bleeding at the fracture site and that blood organizes in 2 to 3 days. So the organized blood, that means that blood is containing multiple chemotactic factors. So this organized blood containing multiple chemotactic factors is called stage of hematoma formation, that takes around 2 to 3 days. So once that hematoma forms, it contains multiple chemotactic factors. It will aggregate fibroblasts. Fibroblasts will come from periosteum and endosteum. It will aggregate platelets. It will aggregate mesenchymal stem cells. So the platelets will secrete fibrin and it will lead to the formation of a fibrin-rich granulation tissue and angioneogenesis. New blood vessels will form in this hematoma. Mesenchymal stem cells that aggregates will differentiate and will lead to the chondrogenesis, that means the formation of the cartilage, and collagen-rich fibrocartilaginous network will form. And this is the second stage of the fracture healing called granulation tissue formation. This is all granulation tissue and it will take around 2 to 3 weeks. So once the granulation tissue will form, there is cartilage and collagen network is forming, and these fibroblasts that are there in the granulation tissue will differentiate into osteoblasts, and osteoblast will start secreting osteoid. Osteoid is an organic component of the bone, that means the major part is a collagen. So This all structure hematoma, there are multiple cells, and there are osteoblasts which are differentiating from the fibroblast, and they are secreting the collagen. So this hematoma will become collagen rich, and this stage is called callus formation. This will take around 2 to 3 months. So the collagen is a proteinaceous substance and it is a soft structure. Now calcification starts. So calcification is very low in the stage of callus formation, and gradually the calcium deposition will increase in the callus. So the collagen are irregularly arranged, and there is a calcium deposition. More calcium will deposit, more strength the bone fracture site will have. So this is a stage of consolidation, and this is called a woven bone that is formed in the consolidation stage, and it will take around 2 to 3 years. So if we look the clinically the consolidation stage will be the first stage that we can see the fracture is uniting, because we will not be able to move the bony fragments clinically. But on the x-rays, the calcification will look in the callus stage. So x-ray wise, that callus formation will be the first stage where we can see the bone is uniting. So after the consolidation, then the remodeling will start. Remodeling means there is a Haversian canal system that is being formed in the consolidated stage. That means irregularly arranged collagen fiber will be arranged as per the Haversian canal system, and this is a stage of remodeling, and it will be continue throughout. So let's look at a few questions. Earliest stage of union. Earliest stage, that means we should be able to have something visibly, and that is a X-ray. X-ray we can see the callus formation. That means some calcification is there in the collagen in the callus formation. So callus formation is the earliest stage of union. Next question. First clinical stage of union: hematoma formation, granulation tissue formation, callus formation, consolidation. So we have already seen that consolidation stage we are not able to move the fracture fragment, so that is a first stage clinically that we can see. The answer is consolidation. Earliest stage to predict union, again the same question in a different format. Earliest stage, that means we should be able to see on x-rays some union, so the answer is callus formation. Callus earliest visible by, so they are asking earliest visible, so 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 10 weeks. So we have already seen that the second stage, that is a granulation tissue formation, will take around 2 to 3 weeks, and after that the callus formation will start. So the earliest stage is 3 weeks. Then implant removal time: 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year. So we will remove the implant only when the bone strength is adequately gained. So it should be when the bone is consolidated, and the minimum time for bone consolidation is 2 years. So the implant removal time is 2 years. So answer is 2 years. Cutting cones are formed by osteocyte, osteoblast, osteoclast, mesenchymal stem cells. So the answer in this case is osteoclasts. Let's look at the details of cutting cones. This is seen in bone remodeling. So let's look at the stage of remodeling in cortical bones. So if we have this cortical bone and there is a fracture, so at the fracture site, that normal Haversian canal system that was there is disturbed in cortical bone. So fracture healing has already occurred. Bone is consolidated. Now it is going into remodeling. That means the Haversian canal system is going to be formed. Whereas the collagen with the calcium deposit is already formed. So the osteoclast will come, will create space in the already formed consolidated bone. These spaces are formed in the form of a cone. So the cells that are involved are osteoclasts. So osteoclast will do the bone resorption in the form of cutting cones. These are also called as osteoclast tunneling. So in these created spaces, the blood neurovascular structure will go. Collagen will arrange around the neurovascular structures, and these osteoclasts then in the picture osteoblasts will come. They will produce more collagen, and then the calcification will occur in these arranged manners, and this is called stage of remodeling. So if we talk about stage of remodeling, first there is a osteoclast resorption of the bone, then layering of the osteoblast. That means osteoblast will come, produce osteoid, and they will lead to the layering of lamellae, and then the blood vessels are growing in the center and lead to the formation of the Haversian canal system. So this is a stage of remodeling. Now in the cancellous bone there is no Haversian canal system, but they will have to just arrange the collagen fiber in some manner and will lead to the calcification there. So there is a direct osteoclastic resorption, and we can see these Hossip's lacunae are formed out of these resorption of the bone, and then osteoblast will come and deposit bone in these layer of lamellae, and this is how the remodeling is happening in cancellous bones. So if we look at cancellous and cortical bone, in the cancellous bone Hossip's lacunae are forming, then osteoblast will deposit the bone or bone apposition will happen. Whereas in cortical bone these cutting cones are formed, then osteoblasts are forming the lamellae, and there is a neurovascular structure growth in the center, and these are lead to the formation of closing cones. That means the full laminae are formed. So if we look at the Wolff's law, it states that bone remodels in response to a mechanical stress. That means if the mechanical stress is high, the bone formation will be high. If the mechanical stress is low, bone formation will be low and resorption will be high. So thicker lamellar bone is laid down where the stresses are high. So there is a predominant osteoclastic activity at tension side and osteoblastic activity at the compression side. So these are the two pathological exceptions to this law. One is during the production of a callus in a healing fracture, where woven bone will form without resorption. Second is after cancellous bone autograft, where new bone will form directly on the cancellous graft, not requiring resorption. So usually the resorption will occur, then the bone formation will happen irrespective of these two scenarios. Now what is bone turnover? Bone is constantly renewed with a turnover rate of approximately 10% per year. 4% in the cortical bone and 25% in the trabecular bone. We just need to remember this. Somebody may ask this. Now bone turnover is divided into 4 discrete phases. One is a quiescent phase, then there is a osteoclastic resorption, then there is a reversal phase, and then there is a bone formation. Now what is bone modeling? Now all the consequences of remodeling throughout the life is called bone modeling. That means all the consequences of remodeling will lead to the reshape of the bone. Somewhere the bone is strong, somewhere the bone is more, somewhere the bone is low. So that will change the shape and maintain the shape of the bone. This is called bone modeling. So we have already seen the predominant activity on the tension side of a bone is a osteoclastic activity, and predominant activity at the compression side of the bone is a osteoblastic activity. So these processes are responsible for gross change in shape of bone, which occur during development and adaptation of the bone to applied loads. Now let's look at the next question. Fracture environment pH is basic in which stage? Hematoma formation, granulation tissue formation, callus formation, consolidation. So they are asking pH is basic in which stage. So if we look broadly, calcium deposition start after the callus formation, and major calcium deposition is in the consolidation stage. And calcium is a basic structure. If you remember CaOH twice, calcium, wherever calcium will be there, it will make the environment basic. So in the first 3 stages, hematoma formation, granulation tissue formation, callus formation, there is no much calcium. So calcium comes in the consolidation stage. So the consolidation stage onwards will have basic medium, and before that there is a acidic medium. So the answer in this case will be consolidation. Now let's look at few factors that enhance rate of union. So there are multiple factors like high oxygen tension, high pH, stability of the construct. Head injury is also somehow a factor which enhance rate of union. Compression at the fracture site and intermittent shearing forces are the factors that enhancing rate of union. Micromotion at the fracture site will lead to the higher callus formation, and because it activates osteoblast and enhances rate of union. Now let's look at few factors that affect fracture healing. There can be we divided into three types: patient factor, fracture related factors, and treatment related factor. So what are the patient factors? Age, nutrition, addiction, tobacco, smoking and alcohol. They adversely affect the fracture healing. Now fracture related: type of the bone, cancellous bone heals better, location of the fracture, contamination. If there is contamination, fracture healing will be reduced. Soft tissue interposition will may cause non-union. Tissue ischemia is a bad factor for fracture healing. Location of the fracture: if metaphyseal, will heal better. Treatment related factors: compression at the fracture site is a good factor for healing. Immobilization is a good factor for healing. Inadequate reduction is a bad factor for fracture healing. Improper immobilization is a most common factor for non-union. Now if we talk about the fracture type, spiral fractures are more stable, so more chances of healing, more than oblique, more than transverse. Comminuted fracture heal slowest. Now this is a question from PGI, so it will have multiple answers. Following are immediate complications of the fracture: vascular ischemia, neuronal injuries, malunion, compartment syndrome, avascular necrosis. So answer in this case are A and B, vascular ischemia and neuronal injuries. Let's look at the details. So these are the complications of the fracture. Immediate complications are hypovolumic shock, injury to major vessels and the nerve, injury to muscles and tendons, injury to joints, injury to viscera or gas gangrene. If we look at the early complications: hypovolumic shock, ARDS, fat embolism syndrome, TVT and pulmonary embolism, aseptic traumatic fever, septicemia usually in open fractures, Crush syndrome, infection and compartment syndrome. These are early complications. And if we look at the delayed complications, these are problems of union, avascular necrosis, shortening, joint stiffness, Sudeck's dystrophy or also called as reflex sympathetic dystrophy, osteomyelitis, ischemic contractures, myositis ossificans and osteoarthritis. These are the late complications of the fracture. We need to remember all these because we may be asked about the complications of the fracture. Then let's look at the bone graft. The most common source of the bone graft that is used practically is a iliac crest bone graft, that is a cancellous type of the bone graft. Then let's look at the characteristics of ideal bone graft. It can be a osteogenesis, osteoconduction and osteoinduction. Osteogenesis means graft will itself form a new bone with the help of osteoblast. Osteoconduction means it will help growth of a bone on the surface as a scaffold. So it will help osteoconduction. For example, calcium sulfate, calcium phosphate and PMMA are the examples of osteoconduction. Osteoinduction means it will stimulate the host bone to form a new bone. These are usually recombinant growth factors, for example, bone morphogenic proteins. They are used to coat the implant used in the fracture fixation or in joint replacement surgeries. This is a question. Increased callus or a cartilage formation is seen in rigid immobilization, necrosis of the bone ends, increased immobilization and compression plating. So we have already seen the mobilization is more callus formation is there. So the answer is C, increased mobilization. Now what is a wall flow? Wall flow states that if a bone is continuously subjected to a particular stress, it will adapt to become stronger and resist that loading. Option B is only diaphysis allows longitudinal growth in children. Option C is any infection not showing periosteal reaction within 1 week of symptoms can be ruled out to be osteomyelitis. Option number D is angular deformities will progress till the closure of physis. So we have already seen wall flow states that more the mechanical loading, more will be the bone formation. So the answer is A. If bone is continuously subjected to a particular stress, it will adapt and become stronger to resist that loading. So callus formation is seen in between which duration of fracture healing? So it is after 3 weeks. We already know, so the answer should be more than 3 weeks. So out of the options is 0 to 2 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, 4 to 12 weeks, 12 to 16 weeks. The answer should be 4 to 12 weeks. Bone apposition is best in osteoblastic activity at the area of stress, endochondral ossification, subperiosteal cambium layer, osteoblastic activity in Hoseps leucinae. So we already know it is best in subperiosteal cambium layer. So answer is C. Regarding bone remodeling, all are true except bone remodeling. So we have read in detail osteoclastic activity at the compression site. Except, they are asking except. So we already know that osteoblastic activity is there at the compression site. So this is wrong. This would be the answer. But let's look at the another options also. Osteoclastic activity at the tension site. This is right. Osteoclastic activity and osteoblastic activity are both needed for bone remodeling in cortical and cancellous bones. This is true. Osteoblast transforms into osteocytes. This is true. So the answer is A, osteoclastic activity at the compression site. This is wrong. So this was about today's video about fracture and fracture healing. So next video we will discuss about the non-union, malunion, pathological fractures and about all the other conditions related to the fracture. So thank you guys. Thank you very much.